Welcome to Discovering Justice. My name is Attorney Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of this program. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Judge Leslie Harris. He is a juvenile court judge at the Boston Municipal Court. We're proud to have him here, and soon you will be able to hear all the issues that we're facing in Massachusetts regarding the juvenile justice system. If you need to contact our program, please find us at our webpage, www.discoveringjustice.net, and please contact me at lucinda.rivera@discoveringjustice.net. Welcome to our program, Judge Harris.
Well, thank you.
We are pleased to have you today.
I'm honored to be here.
And the first question is as always, about the children in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Over the past decade, there have been a significant number of girls that have joined the system. Tell us your opinion about that. Why is that? What can we do to prevent that? Or has there been anything done to prevent that?
Well, actually, it's been longer than the last 10 years. Girls started increasing in numbers, I think, in the 90s. And for a while, there was a steady increase in the number of girls. Most recently, the number of girls in the system has dropped, dramatically dropped, especially those committed to DYS. I believe girls ended up in the system because they got tired of being taken advantage of by other folks. And they started acting more like the boys. I don't know how else to say that. They were arrested for the same charges as boys. They were carrying themselves in a different way. A lot of the girls we got, they decided that they were no longer going to be victims and took a whole different attitude.
Interesting. And there are, I believe there could be ways to prevent, girls are different than boys. And
Yes.
we're talking children. They need different services. If you would like to elaborate on that, on those type of services.
Well, a number of different agencies stepped forward to try to do what they call girls' initiatives.
Yes.
Approach the issues that young ladies deal with that young men don't deal with. One of them is being exploited.
Right.
We have a lot of young ladies across this state and across the country who are being exploited by numbers of people. People don't realize the amount of violence that occurs sometimes within a family. And girls are quite often the victims of that type of violence.
Yeah.
And we are now much more aware of those types of things. So we've tried to develop programs that address those issues. One of the issues is just self-esteem.
Yes.
Girls can be very mean to other girls. And so we try to work with girls to talk about empathy, try to work with them to try to find other ways to resolve conflict. And it seems to be working because the number of girls who have had to be committed has dropped. Girls are more likely to be runaways, for instance, than boys. And we like to think that they're running from something most of the time as opposed to something. So a lot of the times we're talking about family intervention, not just intervention with the girls themselves.
And Judge Harris, I don't presume to know why they run away, but when we talk about the girls and boys and the age in the juvenile justice system, what is the limit age for children in the juvenile?
To be charged with a criminal offense in the juvenile system, you must be at least 7, and just before you turn 17, on your 17th birthday, you move on to adult court.
And in that vein, what do you feel about that? What are your feelings as far as 17-year-old children who automatically get treated as adults when they might probably be benefiting from prolonging the age? Do you believe in that?
Well, I have to accept the system as it is because I don't have the power
Yes.
to change it. But I believe we should have a three-tier system. We should have a juvenile system to 20, 21 years of age. We should have a young adult system from 21 to, say, 28, and then an adult system. Because I believe, first off, I'm a parent, and I have 3 children, 2 young men and a daughter, and I just could not see them as adults when they were 17. I mean, they were more responsible than they were at 12, but they still were not adults. You know, they still had a little recklessness about them, and it would have hurt me immensely if they had in any way ended up in the system, but I also know how easy it is to end up in the system.
And speaking of that, why is it easy? What type of crimes are our youth being prosecuted for?
Well, one of the, at least at one time, one of the major feeders for our court system was schools. Children at school get in a fight, and they're brought before a judge. Now, I'm of a generation that when I got in trouble at school, and I did, they took me to the principal.
Didn't we all?
And they had my mother or father come up to school. Today, they take you to court for the same behavior that we went to the principal for.
How do you feel about that?
Well, we leave a footprint in a child's life that cannot be erased. Once you have been arrested, it's there forever. Once you've been arraigned in court, it cannot be erased. It will create barriers that children don't even know that, you know, that they want to cross in the future. They don't even know who they want to be yet. And yet we're closing doors in their lives simply by arresting them and bringing them into the court system. This is not what I call a user-friendly system. You don't want your child in the system. If you don't want your child, we shouldn't want any child in the system. That we can, if we can avoid it. Most of these issues should be resolved at the school or at community centers outside of court. Only the most serious cases should come into court. If you have a fight at school, and I've had mostly boys, but girls also fighting at school, and they are hurting someone. If someone's on the ground being kicked, yes, they should be in front of a judge because that's dangerous. But for most of the fights that come into our court, no. They should have their parents up to the school, they should be punished in school, and they should be held accountable within the school system, not in the court system. And the same is true for a lot of the cases that we get from the community. If parents intervene in a quiet way without raising the stakes themselves, a lot of the issues that occur in the community could be resolved short of kids coming into court.
And as far as the kids coming into court, there are different crimes that they could be charged with, not only for school, but there are any other typical crime. What is the percentage of those children who end up being held in the custody of DYS, for instance?
Oh, the percentage is very low when you talk about a sheer percentage of the kids who come into the court. I don't have the exact statistics. I will tell you that the numbers across the state in Massachusetts have dropped. The number of children being arrested have dropped. The number of children being committed to DYS have dropped in the last 5 years or so. And here in Boston, I sit in the Dorchester Juvenile Court 3 days a week at this point, and the numbers there have really dropped. And we're very happy with that.
As far as those numbers dropping, is that across the board, or do you feel that there are racial and ethnic disparities with the contact of children?
The court sees the children after they've been arrested, so we have no control over who comes into the court. Once they're in court, I would like to believe, and I work at believing and work at making sure that all children are treated fairly and equally. We can only deal with those cases that come before the court. How they come there, we do not control.
Do you believe there exist disparities in the Massachusetts juvenile justice system?
In the American justice system, yes. I don't think we are unique in any way. I believe that what you find in the justice systems across the country, you will find in some ways here. Are we the worst? No. Are we the best? Possibly not. But that's part of urban life. You have more minority children living in urban settings. More children in urban settings end up in the court system than in suburban and rural settings. So.
And that begs the question, how many minority youth are charged with committing crimes? And we can talk about those.
Well, I don't
disparities.
know. I don't know the numbers. I know that the majority of the children I see are children of color. But I sit in an urban court.
In an urban court, the Boston Municipal Court.
Boston Juvenile Court, which is majority minority. So
what, right, correct. And what is the jurisdiction of the court, of the Boston Juvenile Court?
all of Suffolk County. So that would include Winthrop and Chelsea, all of Boston.
And, okay.
And the jurisdiction of our court is, of course, we do the delinquency cases, which would be criminal cases if they were adults. We do CHINs, the child in need of services, and we do care and protection cases. Those are the cases where children have either been abused or neglected by their parent or guardian. And the majority of our time is actually spent on care and protection cases. The juvenile is only a small part of, the delinquency is only a small part of what we do.
And Judge Harris, speaking of delinquency and dispositions, what is the most typical disposition of a case in the juvenile court?
The most difficult?
The most common and typical.
The most common?
Yeah.
I would say that most of the cases that come into court are dismissed.
Or dismissed, okay.
Because they're resolved short of trial. The second most would be continued without a finding, meaning that there might be enough evidence there to find them guilty, but the court does not find them guilty. That's generally an agreement between the district attorney's office and the defense attorney. And then probation. The majority of kids do not go on probation when they come through the court. But those who do go on probation, well, that's a different story. Once you're on probation, the majority of children succeed with probation, but there is a group that does not. That we talk about rehabilitating. I think we have to be careful with that word because sometimes it's the original habilitation because these children have not been raised with the same values. I mean, if you grow up in a home where everyone has gone to jail or where you see people selling drugs or committing other crimes on a regular basis, then your value system is going to be a little bit different.
Yes.
And so it's not rehabilitation, it's habilitation of those children. And we do have children who come from those type of situations where there's a generational pattern of incarceration.
And do you feel in that vein that is there a way to prevent these children or to help these children with programs or do you feel that maybe in the particular case that you just talked about where the children see this as a way of life, if they go to DYS, is that a solution for them to, would that be an appropriate way for them to learn, relearn, and rehabilitate?
The challenge
Yes.
is to keep kids, excuse me. The challenge for the juvenile court is to keep kids out of DYS. Every time we send a kid to DYS and some, excuse me.
Oh, so take a moment if you like. I do know that there are different ways to educate children. For example, if children have another adult who mentors, another adult who they see example of, or if there are organizations or programs available for them, they could learn. Also, after-school programs are always a good way to keep children.
See, and I agree with you, because our challenge is to try to keep from committing a child to DYS. DYS is the last effort, last choice for the court. We have diversion programs, those programs that try to intercede before a child is found delinquent, who try to work with children to redirect them. We have a program at Dorchester Court, for instance, called DDAP, Dorchester Diversion Assistance Program, or something to that effect, who has been wonderful. They work not only with the child, but with the child's family, with the school. They try to set up mentors to get them in counseling, to address the whole family instead of just the child, and to give children other options. A lot of the conflict we have within families is because children are in the house all the time and they have no escape. This program tries to get kids involved in other things, taking them to plays, horseback riding, to sports events, things that a lot of these children have never done. And so it makes a big difference. I know that if you want to keep a child out of the court system, keep them busy.
Yes.
Get them involved in activities that take up their time so they don't have time for the court.
Yes. Well, we're watching Discovering Justice. Today we have Judge Leslie Harris, who is the judge at Juvenile Court in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Boston Juvenile Court. And you could view this program and many of our other programs at www.discoveringjustice.net. It will appear on your screens. And my name is Lucy Rivera, and I'm the host of this program. Judge Harris, continuing on with this conversation and talking about the different dispositions for children and young juveniles, the district attorney's office uses diversion. How often do you see them using diversion? What is diversion, and do you think it's effective?
Well, each county has a different district attorney.
Correct, yes.
So each county develops, if they're interested in a diversion program, can develop their own or work with existing diversion programs. Here in Suffolk County, the district attorney's office works with some of the programs that we already have in existence, like DDAP, Bridging the Gap, work with community organizations to try to redirect kids. They're trying to develop a restorative justice program, and we cannot do any of those without the DA's office and without probation. All of those groups have to work together if we look to create programs to keep children out of the court system. And we have a pretty progressive DA's office here, so they're open to a lot of the things that we try to do in the court.
How do you feel about, we were talking about raising the age of children going to being under the juvenile justice jurisdiction. However, this is something different from adult court, which people don't know about, and that is that once children are committed to DYS, they're committed until they are 17.
Till they're 18.
Till they are 18. And that could be the equivalent of life without parole in jail, if we would translate that to criminal adult court. How do you feel about that commitment until the age 18, regardless of what age a particular child can be?
Committed?
Correct.
It is interesting because if you're 14 and you're committed until 18, which is 4 years. The understanding, and this is what people have to understand, DYS does not hold you for 4 years. you are paroled back in the community. And if you are doing what you're supposed to do, then you don't stay in DYS. You're actually there for a specific period of time. They have a grid that addresses your needs. For instance, the severity of the crime, how well you work with the counselors at DYS and the department there. If you're working with them, you end up back in the community quicker than if you come in and you're fighting with them and not doing what you're supposed to do. And what they try to do is to get you back in the community, get you back in school. We all recognize the quicker you get children back into school, the better it is for them. So we try to minimize the disruption that we have with schools. But we can't just have you in school, we have to have you taking part in school.
Okay, but tell us about that DYS, how it works. What is it like for a child to be in there? How is that life for them? What do they learn? And
well, the wonderful thing is that they have teachers, Boston Public School teachers teaching in DYS, and they teach an individual child according to their needs as best they can. They also have counseling. They have a merit system where you can earn your way up for benefits, for privileges. It's not prison. And I think people have to understand that DYS is not prison. DYS is a rehabilitative program. It is to service children as much as it is to detain or punish children. And so in my mind, the big effort of DYS is to get children to understand their responsibility to society and to try to work with them and to gradually bring them back out into the community.
Very interesting, Judge Harris. I have a burning question about two children who engage in sexual conduct, for instance. If they are both 16 years old, and as far as statutory rape, how does that statute apply to juvenile court?
Well, there are two 16-year-olds. Neither one of them are guilty of statutory rape. The law says anyone who has sex with a child under the age of 16 is guilty of rape. So if you are 17 and you have sex with a 15-year-old, by law, you are guilty of rape. If you are 22 and have sex with a 16-year-old, it is not a criminal offense if it's if the other person has consented to sex.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about Massachusetts criminalizing all consensual acts?
I believe that we have to protect children. And I have no problem with the consent age being 16. But I do believe there has to be some type of balance there. Some states have a 2-year or 3-year rule that if the child is no more than 2 or 3 years older than that person, that they won't bring a charge against them. For instance, if you have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, even though you cannot consent at 15, they don't consider that in some states to be something you should prosecute.
Is that the case in Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts, if you are 16 and over and you have sex with anyone under 16, it's a criminal offense.
Very interesting, Judge Harris. Well, time has running out, and time flies when you're having a learning lesson. And I just wanted to thank you, Judge Harris, for coming to our program and teaching us about the important work that you do in juvenile court. And we are proud to have you, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are just watching Discovering Justice. Welcome to our program, and thank you so much for watching us. Today we had Judge Leslie Harris, who is a Boston Juvenile Court judge. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of this program. Please visit our page for information on this program and the content of our other programs at www.discoveringjustice.net.